Howdy ho, folks. Howdy ho. Howdy ho, America and points beyond. Who has power and what are they doing with it? Politics is not a natural act.
That's right.
That's right.
I must admit, I never heard that one from you, John.
There's so many feisty fighters against the greedheads and boneheads. So grab a libation, join the conversation. It's the personal side of politics, and it is surprisingly tasty. Indeed, it's howdy ho to everybody from all across America and wherever else you might be in the cosmos. We're connecting with you via the magic of the Facebook Live and also through Free Speech TV, which reaches some 40 million households. I imagine at least 39 million of them are tuned in right now to this show because it is going to be a lively 40 minutes or so that we're going to present to you here. As always, we are. This is, after all, the lowdown happy hour here at the Hightower Chat and Chew Cafe, otherwise known as My Kitchen. And we invite you to pull up a chair and grab a libation of your own and join us here. I've got my own Austin Beer Garden beverage right here. This is a beer known as Hell Yes. It is a Superliner IPA. Superliner because this brewery right near my home here has a train track going right by it, and the Superliner chugs right by on a regular basis. But we invite you to be a part of the conversation and to bring your own drink of choice to us. Deanna, as always, Deanna Zant out of Brooklyn is tuned in with us. Hey, there's
What's
Deanna.
up, Hightower?
And you're drinking something or other, I imagine.
I've got it's slightly off camera right now, but I've got my bougie Chardonnay in my sippy cup. I'm a happy girl.
Gotta have it. All right. So Deanna is there, and Deanna's among her many purposes, besides producing this show, is to connect with you, the viewers. And so if you've got a question, if you've got an insight, you've got a good story you want to share with us, the jokes are good. We like those. Bring those to Deanna, and we'll bring them right here on air with our guests. And we've got a lively one here tonight at the Chat and Chew. As you know, the Lowdown tries to take you to some places outside of the power centers of Washington and Wall Street in the Silicon Valley, take you out to the grassroots, to workaday people who are making the real changes that are advancing our democratic possibilities in this country. These are often people you might not know all of that well, but you should know them, and you're going to be delighted to know the folks we've got to bring to you here tonight. We're going to take you inside a beast, Amazon, a $1.5 trillion behemoth corporation, the largest corporation in America. We're going to take you also inside a unionizing fight inside Amazon, and that is quite a trip indeed. We're going to start off with Eric Hall. Eric was born in Flint, Michigan, but since 1991, I think it is, been back home to his mother's homeland in Birmingham, Alabama. And he's a community organizer. He's a minister in the Peace Missionary Baptist Church there. He mentors people, and he is also the founder or co-founder of the Black Lives Matter in Birmingham, and he's been working closely with the people who are on strike in the Amazon plant in Bessemer, Alabama, which is right outside of Birmingham. Bessemer, named for Henry Bessemer, the founder of the Bessemer process of creating steel. You didn't think I knew that, did you? Yeah, see, I do my homework. Bessemer steel, we know about that. And involves putting oxygen through iron to make steel. And it turns out the Birmingham area is rich in that iron ore and coal, and so has been an industrial powerhouse for quite a while. But now it is a land of Amazon. Eric Hall, thank you so much for being with us today. Glad to have you.
Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Hightower. Really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Hope you got a drink with you.
I do.
There you go.
Still-
Okay, it is indeed. Yeah. Well, we'll try to get through Eric early then, because he may not survive if he gulps that. But tell me, Eric, I was impressed in reading some about you. About the importance of mentors in your life, and that seems to me relevant to the story we're telling tonight, because there's a lot of young people that the union, the retail, wholesale, and department store union is trying to organize in the Amazon plant, and these are folks who need mentors, who need leadership to go through what is a grueling process in best of circumstances, and when you're facing a giant like Amazon, more than grueling, it can be abusive. So, to tell us a little bit about what mentors have meant to you.
So mentors to me have literally changed my life. You've done some research as far as one of my early mentors. I like to give credit to, he's deceased now, but the late Reverend Dr. Arthur J. Pointer, who was in Flint, Michigan. He was a giant of a man, and he actually mentored kids. He, as a child, I went through as a young child, of course, growing up in Flint, Michigan, it was during that gang era. And I didn't know anything about being bad. Hell, it was just a gang, and I felt like, I think the first little gang or something I joined here, we call ourselves the Ninja Turtles or something like that. But it was a start to a path in the wrong direction, right? And so, seriously, this guy, he was a pastor, he was a community activist, he was a politician. I didn't necessarily know that as a child. I didn't know what he was doing for what he provided for my mother and community. I was a child. I didn't know he was the man who made Christmas possible and who made Thanksgiving meals possible for many of the community kids and families in Flint, Michigan at that time. Only thing that I saw as a kid was that it was there. I didn't think about how it got there, but it was there, and it was because of a mentor, a guy that I looked up to, Reverend A.J. Pointer. And then, of course, I have other mentors. My mother, of course, I definitely look up to her. She was a giant. She was a caring person. Always been a caring person. I always tell the story about my mom. She started off when she first started working. She had a degree in childhood education, had a love for kids, and her love, that was her passion work. It didn't pay her much. She started off making $4.25 an hour minimum wage, and she stopped working making $7.25 an hour. And so I always tell people, whenever my mother gave her whole life to serving kids, but she literally only earned $1 increase for every 10 years of her career.
That's upward mobility for you, isn't it?
Yeah. And so it was definitely a sad situation. And I was wondering, like, how, I don't know how she made it, you know what I'm saying? But it was literally, I would say, is by God's grace and by community coming together and really kind of supporting each other at that point in time.
Well, I wanted you to tell us a little bit about that, because we know about the giants, Martin Luther King Jr., and any other of the big leaders that we hear about, but they're not the ones who are talking to the kids. They're not the ones who are there day and night. They're not the ones who are doing the Christmas events that you're talking about, and they're not the ones doing the organizing in the plants.
Right.
For union efforts. So, what we're saying here is that the real powers that be are the powers that ought to be. The ordinary folks who are out there on the front lines doing the heavy lifting. That makes some element of democracy more possible than it was the day before. So that's what we're struggling with, and it seems to me that that's what you brought from your time in Bessemer and in Birmingham, particularly, and you brought that community of Black Lives Matter and your church and et cetera, into a union fight. Why did you choose to do that, and what did you think you could bring to that cause?
I choose to do that one because I see after speaking with the employees at Amazon, quickly learned that majority of the individuals that work in that facility are Black and brown people. Majority, it's about 80% or more that's Black. Um, Also, the majority of those employees are women. And so I joined that fight. It was important that Black Lives Matter lead the efforts in this fight. One, to send a clear message to the world that Black lives do matter, and that for so long, Black people, Black labor has gone undervalued. And so it's some things that we definitely have to change. We have to just be real as it relates to economic injustice in this country. We have to deal with a lot of people don't want to address racism. We try to skate around it. We continue to kick the can down the road and nobody want to pick up the can, right? So at some point, in America, we have to address the issues around race. We cannot continue to skate around it. We have to deal with our horrid past. And hopefully once we deal with it, we can heal from it. And so, yeah, the majority of the people work there are Black and brown people. We have to fight for Black lives. And I always tell people if Black lives win, everybody can win. And so when people come at me with that all lives matter, all lives can't matter until Black lives are appreciated and Black lives are seen as human. We're given the proper dignity and respect that we deserve. And so that's
and I like the way you're saying that we have to do, because you can't wait on them to do it for us. Even the good them to do it for us. We've got to do the heavy lifting ourselves, and in ways that we can. I mean, not everybody's going to be on the front line. Not everybody is going to be on the TV, and et cetera. But we all can contribute something, and the main thing we can contribute is that notion that we actually are all in this together.
right.
And that we've got to push that ethic forward, push it up to the powers that be. Take us inside that plant. We've got a picture of the plant there in Bessemer that'll give you some just sense of the scope of the thing. It's like an airport. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a huge thing.
It's a huge.
And this is not the biggest of the Amazon plants across the country, of its warehouses, fulfillment centers they call them. But it's plenty big enough. But take us inside that a little bit, Eric, if you will. What do you see when you walk in there, and what does it feel like?
Well, honestly, I've never been inside the facility. I'm a community organizer, just organizing, bringing groups in. But I can definitely share with you some of the stories that have been shared with me from employees that work there. So going inside the facility, of course, you go through the security measures. I've been told, of course, that they have an ambulance on site, and then they also have police on site. It's about the size of a couple of football fields. And so when people go to work at their various stations, I'm told that they actually are supposed to be at the stations, of course, minutes early. Getting there on time, for some people is considered to be late. And so, people are literally walking around like on eggshells, scared that they're going to lose their job, even with going to the restroom. I've heard stories that, when you go to the restroom, anything after 2 minutes or so, if you've gone too long, the supervisors are breathing down your neck. I've been told stories that they have elevators at the facility, but the elevators aren't for human use, it's for merchandise. And so these are just, even with stories of employees wanting to go and drink water after laboring, after being on the line, can't leave the line for a certain period of time just to go and get a drink of water. You come back and you be docked for that. So those are some of the horror stories that I've been told.
Kind of regimented
that exists. Right.
A regimented autocratic sort of system that is there. Let's. I'd like to bring in another person at the round table here with us at the Lowdown Chat and Chew here today. Lauren Kaori Gurley is a tremendous journalist, investigative reporter for Vice magazine, internet publication that does a lot of investigative work. And Lauren has been doing for quite a while, digging in to Amazon itself. Lauren, first of all, thank you for being here with us, pulling up a chair. You've got a libation, I hope. There it is, which is not on there.
Now you can hear me.
There we are. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's a New Haven beer?
Yeah, so I just moved to Connecticut, to New Haven, and it is a beer that was made a couple blocks away from me by East Rock Brewing Company.
Fantastic. Yeah, you always want to have your brewery close by, just in case.
I haven't been yet because of COVID, unfortunately, but it's down the street from me. But yeah, thank you for having me on, and it's great to meet you, Eric, too.
Well,
And
we have in Lauren a reporter who digs in the tradition of Ida Tarbell and Upton Sinclair, who looks into the power structure and on behalf of those who are being run roughshod over by that power structure. Lauren, Eric was telling us some of the stories inside, but I read an article that you wrote just recently in Vice about Amazon in Bessemer. And you told a story about a red light in particular. Share that with us.
Yeah, so workers who are unionizing down at the plant in Bessemer, they one of their only points. So it's hard for organizers to reach them because Amazon is private property. Like Eric said, he hasn't been there. I also went down there, but I wasn't able to go into the warehouse. Super rural, pretty remote area. And so worker organizers, the union, the retailers union, has been sort of standing outside on a tiny patch of public sidewalk outside the warehouse for months during shift changes, starting at 3 a.m. every day. They're still doing this right now. Basically around the clock, there's always people there. And as workers are driving in and out on their shift change, they have like a couple minutes because it's a slow stoplight to chat them up. Eventually what happened, Amazon, I don't know if we said this already, but is very against the union. They do not want workers to unionize, and have been, hiring top law firms, union busting consulting firms to fight the union drive, pulling all sorts of, classic union busting moves. One of the more creative ones is that they ended up convincing Jefferson County, that's where Birmingham and Bessemer are located, to change the timer on the street light to make it shorter so that workers didn't have as much time to talk to organizers. And the organizing strategy for this union was very much predicated on this street light being a certain length of time, and so that's actually really made it a lot more difficult for people to do the organizing. And also, I was talking to some organizers, and they're like, I'm just getting to the good part, and then the light changes, and then people start honking and sort of mess things up. But it's just an example of sort of the lengths that Amazon is willing to go to fight this union drive to keep it out.
And Amazon has based its rise to eminence and enormous power on anti-union policies, aggressive, violent sometimes, but certainly thorough, but also on cheating the taxpayers and cheating their competitors. They rose to power as an internet bookstore because they claimed they did not have to pay sales tax in any state or any city. That meant that they could sell their books about 15% cheaper than a bookstore could, because bookstores have to pay the sales tax, have to charge that sales tax. So Amazon used that subsidy from the taxpayers to be able to drive the independent bookstores and ultimately the big chain bookstores out of business. And it has continued that business model. Lauren, the first thing You know, how can an ordinary person know when a corporation is doing something that is beyond just venal, beyond just mean, but extraordinarily, deeply immorally bad? Well, the main way you can know it is this: they take out full-page ads in newspapers like the New York Times, and this is
Right.
one from Amazon, saying what a tremendous job they're doing for their workers. And the several thousands of dollars that this ad costs Amazon is absolutely nothing. It's not even the money that they spend on coffee to run that ad, and to basically lie that our workers love us. We treat our workers so well. They certainly don't need a union, and mostly they deserve. We as a corporation deserve the support of the people because we are employing these people, no matter what the terms of that employment is all about. Tell us a little bit about this corporation, Lauren. You've really been digging into it, and I'll just say, Jeff Bezos, who is the CEO, founder of Amazon, a billionaire. His latest numbers were what they were 182 billion dollars a year that he has supposedly amassed in personal fortune. 182 billion dollars. Let me back up a little bit, because you got to get a sense of this, just like you've got to see that factory, that warehouse, to understand the scale of it. What is 182 billion dollars? If you think of it in terms of minutes, a million minutes is 11 days. A billion minutes is 31 years. He's got 182 billion minutes. So he has 5,642 years, by my math, here, that he has accumulated. One person. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just saying, it's a sad. I heard somewhere the other day that he probably makes about $40 million an hour.
Yeah.
Now, just hearing that alone was like shocking to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
but same time, he want to boast and brag because he's in a position to pay $15.32 or 30 cents an hour. And we all know that, $15.30 an hour, is not it's decent, but it's not a livable wage.
No.
Especially in society today. For a person making $15.32 an hour, you probably can barely afford a 1-bedroom apartment in some places. And
Right.
so those are the realities that we have to kind of think about in America. Like, it's hard. You can't make it off of those things, and you shouldn't be boasting and bragging like it's a good thing that he's paying somebody. What we're fighting for, a minimum wage. The minimum wage that we're fighting for is $15 an hour. So for a person who made a profiteer who made about $80 billion during a global pandemic can definitely afford to give those workers who fulfill the mission of Amazon every day at the fulfillment center, need to start looking at them like partners, not necessarily laborers, partners in the company, because if those partners wouldn't go to the fulfillment center every day to produce, he wouldn't receive the money that he's received.
Well, 100. I don't. They say they say of these CEOs, well, he's worth 182 billion dollars a year. No, he's not. He gets 182 billion dollars a year. Not about that. So what about Black Lives Matter's efforts there in Birmingham? Eric, share us some of what you're doing.
So some of what, we're actually leading the community efforts as it relates to mobilizing community around this particular issue. And so it's Black Lives Matter Birmingham chapter, and we've built a coalition of other grassroots organizations because we understand that if this fight is going to have the impact that it's going to have, we have to collectively come together. So
right.
We have allies from Our Revolution, who has joined this fight, Democratic Socialists of America Birmingham chapter. the National Network of DSA, Socialist Alternative, National BLM Movement, we, Greater Birmingham Ministries, we even hosted a movement caravan this past week. And a part of that movement caravan, what we wanted to do was bring in our elders. And so we actually brought in the original foot soldiers, those individuals who marched with King and Shuttlesworth and all those giants.
Fantastic.
We had the NAACP. We had, members from the Alabama Support People's Campaign. In fact, Reverend Barber himself was just here on yesterday. And so we literally brought in this whole community.
It's a continuum, isn't it, Eric?
Yeah.
I mean, we're in, it's the same fight that we've been in for since
the beginning,
since the founding,
Yeah.
at least really before the founding, even. Lauren, you've done a lot of you know the history of the labor movement around the South because of the work you've been digging into. Tell us a little bit about the history there in Birmingham. It is not alien country to unions.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people were very shocked when they first heard that the first union election at an Amazon warehouse in the history of the company is going on in the Deep South in Alabama, of all places. But I think, Eric will probably say, I won't speak for him, but a lot of people on the ground there and who've been studying, the history of the region are not surprised at all because, this area around Birmingham has been sort of an industrial hub in the South since the 1860s, 70s, 80s. You have is very rich in iron ore. And steel mills have been around, since the Industrial Revolution, basically. And so you also, as a sort of effect of that, have had a very militant labor movement in the Birmingham area since the 1860s. I believe there was the first organized work stoppage in the 1860s in a mill, but you also have textile workers. And so, moving forward a bit in time in the 1930s, you also have another period of very militant, strikes, some violence going on. Some ties to the Communist Party between some of the United Mine Workers of America. In the 1960s, RWDSU, which is the retailers union that is now unionizing the Amazon plant, they started organizing workers in Alabama in the Birmingham area. And for them, the civil rights movement and the labor rights movement have really gone hand in hand. So when they were, unionizing people, they were also organizing around the desegregation struggle, voting rights. And I think
it's all the same fight, really. I mean, it's about who has power, who has money and power, and who doesn't, and how those who have it are using it to squeeze out even more from the rest of us. So that is the fight that we're in. I know that the retail, wholesale, and department store workers union has had great success in the area there. They organized some 1,200 workers over at the Pilgrim's Pride poultry processing outfit. I knew Bo Pilgrim, the man for whom Pilgrim Pride is named, and there wasn't much pride in Bo. He was caught on the floor of the Texas Senate handing out $10,000 checks to try to exempt himself from workers' compensation program back in the 1980s, and several senators, embarrassed senators, were rushing to give back the money after it got exposed that they had taken a $10,000 check on the floor of the state Senate. But this is business as usual. In this world in which a handful of corporate elites, backed by Wall Street bankers, by the way, backed by money people around the world, are able just to squeeze the life, in many cases literally, out of working stiffs. in our world. So that's kind of what we're dealing with, and it's so. But I'm so pleased, Lauren and Eric both, that you've talked about Alabama. I had a great labor organizing friend, Sam Dawson. With the steelworkers, he came out of Alabama, and I asked him one time. I said, "Well, when did you leave Alabama?" And he said, "As soon as I was."
Hey, y'all, we're having a little technical difficulties with Hightower's internet connection. Not entirely sure what happened, but we're going to be working on that. In the meantime, we've got a bunch of great, amazing comments. A lot of love for you both, Lauren and Eric. There is just so much love in the comments on Facebook for y'all. One of my favorite things is that we always shout out where folks are watching from, and we always ask people where they're watching from. And we have Columbus, Nebraska, Norman, Oklahoma, Lubbock, Texas, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Concord, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
And I think Hightower is back.
Okay, who knows what's going on? But what is going on is there is a unionizing movement taking place in the Birmingham Bessemer area of Alabama. At a huge Amazon warehouse, some 5,000 employees there, and a vote is taking place even as we speak. And in fact, we could not have members of the union be on the show with us tonight because that vote is taking place, and we don't want to interrupt that in any way, and either way that it might go. But Lauren, that you've covered Amazon and Amazon unionizing efforts that have taken place in North Carolina and elsewhere around the country. But this is different. Why is this different, this effort in Alabama? Why is it catching hold in a way that it has not elsewhere?
Yeah, so I think there are a number of factors. Like you said, this is the first. I mean, Amazon's been around since '96, I believe. This is the first time warehouse workers have made it to a union election, meaning that they've qualified with the National Labor Board. And so it's a huge deal. And like you said, this is close to 6,000 workers. So in order to get to that point, they had to get a third of workers to sign union authorization cards. So they had to get 2,000 workers to sign cards, which was a big deal. It's happening right now, partially because of the pandemic, which is sort of counterintuitive. But, a couple of years ago when there really wasn't much organizing going on at Amazon facilities, like if Amazon workers walked out in Minnesota, which they did, it was huge news. Now, since the pandemic happened, workers had they were originally offered $2 an hour hazard pay. That was taken away in May. So that was taken away 2 months into the pandemic. They were also offered unlimited unpaid leave, meaning they could call out sick anytime. This was a pandemic perk. They took that away in May as well. And so I think people are out there risking their lives for this company, for the richest man in the world, and they're seeing how much money he's making. I mean, his wealth grew by $100 billion during the first few months of the pandemic. And so I think this really galvanized people to start walking out all over the country. So you saw walkouts in New York City and Staten Island. You saw them in Los Angeles. You saw them in Chicago. You saw them in Sacramento. And it's become a lot more normalized for workers to speak out at Amazon facilities, because of what they're risking, because of what Bezos is gaining. And so that's sort of the context for where we see the Alabama workers start to organize too. I mean, this Alabama facility actually only opened up in March, so it's brand new. Workers immediately went to the union to talk about unionizing, within a couple of months of that facility opening. And the momentum, getting all those cards signed, thousands of cards, that happened in a matter of weeks and months. So there's a lot of anger and frustration about, what this job was like, and people understand. I think people are seeing this in sort of a broader national context of, how much power this company has amassed.
Well, it's yeah. People see, they say the higher the monkey climbs, the more you see of its ugly side, and I think that's what's happened to Jeff Bezos. uh, he has been perceived for what he is. And by the way, Jeff Bezos is not on the front lines. He's not out there exposing himself to COVID. He's isolated. But there's a willingness now, I think, almost a gag reflex by the American public to say it's too much. It's too much. We can't have corporation running ads saying we're all in this together when, of course, we're not all in this together. The Jeff Bezos has $182 billion, more than I have, for example. But Eric, I want to kind of come to a close here with you. Because you do a lot of work with young people, and there's a lot of young people, young being under 40, say, in this facility. How is that different? How is it different to try to unionize? Well, first of all, unionizing is very hard. It's almost been outlawed in America with the lobbyist power of corporations and the total acquiescence by the Republican Party and the obsequious go along to get along obedience of the Democratic Party in previous years. So we have to do this ourselves. The powers that be aren't going to do it for us; they're the ones doing it to us. So we have to be the ones to step forward. But we really are young people, and tell us a little bit about what it's like, Eric, to be trying to persuade young people and to see whether they're responding or not to this effort.
Yeah. So for me, I think it's the most important thing is just kind of making a connection to young people. I'm a union member myself. I'm a part of AFGE, local number 2206. But before that, a lot of us have, because of the history of Birmingham and Jefferson County, like Lauren mentioned earlier, we're the grandbabies and the great grandbabies
Right.
of people who were a part of the unions, who started unions in the city. And so, we have to make the connection with our history and reclaim that history and just remind people. My connection to, when I'm talking to young people, and I'm just going to be honest with you, like with Amazon investing $10,000 a day in union busting, they have done a damn good job in getting in the heads of a lot of young people in that facility. And the mindset of a lot of those people have really been like, I just want to get paid. I'm not trying to, $15 an hour is good for me. And I'm like, well, shit, what about later? What about, when they stop throwing down, all the good perks and they, when the bonuses and the promotions stop, then what position are you going to be in when it comes to later? So I tell people, look, a union is just simply an insurance for if shit was to go down later. You have an assurance
Bingo.
that somebody is going to represent you, and you have to make the connection to what are the highlights and what are the wins that unions have brought to this country. And so when we think about a 5-day work week, when we think about breaks, when we think about being able to go out and smoke a cigarette, when we think about pay increases and promotions and being eligible to be promoted, all of those good things were made possible because of the work of union organizers. And so we just have to make, my thing is just making the connection with young people. We've purchased billboards in this city. We've purchased radio ads. We have commercials running. We've had all kind of national figures come in. We had, Killer Mike, who is a well-known rapper.
Yeah.
He's come in.
Mike.
Yeah, Killer Mike is dope, and so we're literally just trying to get to the hearts and the minds of the young people and let them know that it's more so about your future than now. Unions do work. Unions have been proven to be successful in working, especially in collective bargaining and being a voice for, the entire facility. It's not just, those people who are in the union, but the fight of a union it's the fight for all and not just a fight for some. And so they're fighting, Amazon is doing a damn good job. And, they got posters in the bathrooms, vote no, and,
they have
mandating.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because they have this is one of their tactics. Amazon has had a program called the installment program, and they put messages in the bathroom stalls. So
Yeah.
that's an installment.
Oh, that's what
It's an anti-union message that you can ponder as you're doing whatever you're doing there. So anyway, this is. But Lauren, just quickly back to you. What do you think? I mean, what's the chances of this? And either way it goes, where do we go then?
Yeah, I think win or lose, like this is going to inspire a lot more Amazon workers to organize, and already is doing that. The chances, I mean, it's hard to say. I think if it weren't for Amazon's union busting, if it weren't for the installments in the bathroom stalls and changing the street lights and, literally if posting all over the warehouse these anti-union banners that are sort of masquerading as facts or education or whatever, I think that the union would probably pretty easily win. But Amazon is, pouring so many resources into this, and just talking to people on the ground, I think there is concern that, not enough people are getting the right messaging. Some people are, drinking the Kool-Aid. And so I think that, like your earlier question, like what it really will come down to is, maybe beyond the union's control. It's like Amazon is, will literally do anything to keep this union out. And so I think the union is doing an excellent job, but I think it's hard to say at this point what's going to happen. I think that if it's remotely close, like if it's like, a few 10 votes apart, you're going to have Amazon litigating, the hell out of, those 10 votes and contesting every single ballot, saying, oh, this person wasn't working here then, or they didn't sign the ballot correctly, or they didn't put their name on it. Right. So I'm concerned about, all these things that Amazon is doing. That said, I don't think it's impossible for the union to win. I think, you've had so many people speak out, so many, politicians, athletes unions, even I'm in a union too. I'm in the Writers Guild of America. So like all these unions are coming out saying things. I think all of those things helps a lot. It's just like we're dealing with Goliath or whatever. So we'll see what happens. A week from today, they're going to start counting votes. I don't think that means that we're going to know the answer a week from today. It's probably going to take a few days for all the votes to be counted. And, after that, we might see some lawsuits.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, Jim,
yes, go ahead.
What I do want to say, what I like so much about your show, you always talk about how the hell can we make progressives progressive, right?
Yes.
And
right.
So part of what we've been fighting for, because it's so much money going into union busting. We need our elected officials to stand up to these powerful giants, these major corporations, and demand, the president make an executive action to stop providing federal contracts to these companies that invest in union busting.
Hello.
When we start hitting them in the pockets, I think we definitely see some change. But until then, we need some of them to stop taking some of these corporate dollars and, speak up against these powerful giants and against Wall Street and against Amazon and Bezos and all these other major corporations, and start speaking up for the people, And so we have to hold some of these elected officials accountable. And so that'll be a start. Just kind of want to put that out there.
Well, I'm glad you did, because that is exactly, again, it's us at a grassroots level that are going to win this fight, and maybe we don't win it this time. I hope we do. One thing you've done, Eric, I think that's really important is you've shown the workers in that facility that the community is behind them. is the community is not backing the billionaire Bezos. The community is trying to stand with those working people, and that's worth its weight in gold right there. As one who's been in a lot of fights, if you know that people are actually out there give a damn for what you're trying to do and actually support it in the ways that you have done. So we want to stay in touch with both of you as we go through this. I saw a bumper sticker the other day. It said, for every Goliath, there is a stone. So let's keep that in mind as we proceed along this path, this important path, the long path of unionization, of union power in this country, because union power is essentially people power. That's all it comes down to. So please tell us, Eric, how folks can stay in touch with you. Have you got a website or some sort of Twitter thing or whatever?
So you can follow me on social media, Facebook. It's simply Eric Hall. If you're out of state, Eric Hall Birmingham. I'm easy to find. You can Google me. You can find all of my user tags. On Twitter, it's at elect Eric Hall. And so, yeah, you can find me that way. Always Google Birmingham Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter Birmingham chapter. You can send us an email at birminghamblm@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to communicate with you.
You are available.
Yeah, I'm available. What I do want to say, I want to say this real quick. Giants do fall, and so this
That's
one
right.
giant that we're gonna make fall.
That's right. We've done that before in America, and we can do it again. Lauren, how do we connect with you?
Yeah. I guess my name is below me, but my Twitter handle is Lauren @Lauren K Gurley Gurley, and you can also search my name on the internet and my name and Vice, and you'll find all of my articles. I write about Amazon basically every week and labor conditions in Amazon warehouses and how delivery drivers and gig workers. So yeah, I cover it all. But yeah, thank you so much.
We're all in it together. Thank you so much. Thanks for being with us. And thanks to all of you viewers. And get behind this thing, because this is a huge fight for little d democracy in the United States of America.